Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's doing all right today. Right, let's get into it. Oh, dear, it's an early one today, isn't it? Oh, right, wake up. Let's go. So yesterday we were using which framework is it? Iced. That was it. I've been using so many I can't even remember the names of them all now. We were using Iced to try and create our tabbed document example, which basically allows us to have a frame with a status bar, a toolbar, a tab content area, be able to switch tabs and all this kind of stuff, and load up some config and use the config and create documents and all this kind of thing. And we had some success yesterday with tabs, and in the afternoon did a bit more work on that, and we ended up with a little diagram which is an expansion on the one that one of the users in the Discord channel, in the ICE Discord channel, created. I learned how to use this ExceliDraw tool as well. It turns out there's a nice plugin for logsec as well. Let's see it now. So what we've ended up with is this diagram. Let me zoom out a little bit. I mean, this diagram is so big it doesn't even fit on the screen properly. Yeah, okay. Let me try and walk you through what we currently have. Right. So it all starts with the user, because everything starts with the user, right? And yeah, the user sees a user interface, which has been created prior to this, obviously. And then they click a checkbox, and then the checkbox creates an event, which is part of the widget provided by Iced, which then runs the on toggle closure on the button that belongs to the home tab view, which then creates a message, which then gets wrapped in another message by the tab kind view, which then gets wrapped in another message by the tabs view, which then gets wrapped by an app message, which then gets given to the ICE runtime. And the ICE runtime eventually gets around to calling an update method, the update method inside your app, which then looks at the app message, peels back a layer, and then sends that off to the tabs update, which then peels off a layer and matches on the tab kind message, which then delegates that to the particular instance of tab, which is the home tab. And then that does what it needs to do, as in mutate its state or whatever. And then that eventually creates an action which then gets sent back up the different layers and can be handled by the application. Yeah, and then the arrows between these show the call stack, and then the plain arrows show the data flow, and eventually ICE then renders a new user interface with an updated state of the checkbox. And we've got different colors in this diagram to indicate the different responsibilities and areas of code and so on. So the ICE runtime is in orange, application specific code is in grey, reusable components are in pink, and library code is in blue. Right, let me zoom this in a little bit, just so that you can see a little bit more of it, just to get a feel for that. So currently with this apps, this is what we did in the stream yesterday, although it might not have been clear from the stream yesterday because there's a lot of moving parts, which is evident by this diagram. Yeah. So I've also included a sort of little diagram of the user interface in the same color scheme as well. So the application specific bit is here, at the border of the window, because the application owns the window, right? And then the application inside that renders a tab bar, and then the tab bar owns the view that's underneath it as well, because it needs to switch it out. And then you've got a reusable, retestable bit in the middle, which is the home view or the document view or whatever. The document tab rather. And inside one of those reusable things there might be some other controls, such as a checkbox which says display on startup, and that checkbox is provided by the ICE runtime, so it's in orange. So that's sort of like the overview of things that we've got. And this was all well and good and everything was fine, and then I tried to implement the close all button yesterday after the stream, and I've got a closed all button that works, but the amount of discussion that came up in the Discord channel regarding the closed all button was very surprising to me. It was very surprising to me. Okay, so let's look at the code and see where we've ended up this morning, and then we'll dive into looking at some other suggestions and feedback from the Discord server and see if we can make head nor tail of it. If I can find the code, close everything else. There we go. So we're onto the code. So let's move my little head. Oop, not that. Let's move my head back into the other side. There we are. Right. So we've got a main app, we've got a config, and we pass the config over to the tab document UI, and we wrapped it in an arc. And then when the tab document UI creates itself, it stores a reference to the config. Fine. And if the show on startup, home on startup is enabled, then it adds the home. And because the add home button is part of the tab document UI, it's therefore got access to the config, and therefore it can pull out the value of the boolean that's in here and pass that over to the home tab. And the home tab can then store that in itself. Right. Then the home tab can use this when it's displaying the checkbox, and when the show on startup message is sent when you press the checkbox, it then does that whole flow of stuff, you know. It goes all the way through this and all the way through this and back again, and at the point where it gets to this bit here is where the update method is called here, which then it gets the value of the boolean in the message, and then it can update its own state, and then it can create an action to say that its state has been changed, so that anyone that needs to know this can then look at that, which could happen in the application up here, right? And that indeed does happen in the application. In our application's update method, it says if you've got a tab kind message, then dispatch it, and then eventually you'll get back an action, and if that action is a tab action, and that tab action is a tab kind action of home tab action, then you can match on that action as well. So we've got, just so that we're clear here, we've got a match and another match and another match and another match on these vents, which is a lot of matching and a lot of nesting, and I'm not really a big fan of this. And if that match is one of these show on startup chains, then we can do something, but there's nothing particular that we can do at the moment. But if we wanted to do it, that's how we would do it. And that's how that works. But there's a problem. Some of you can probably already guess what the problem is if you're paying attention. Let's run this and see what happens. Let's run this. Here we go. We're running it. Right. And then we'll go back to the close all situation in a minute. So we've got home. We get a home tab. We've got show on startup. Right. It's not ticked. And you'll notice that the home tab wasn't displayed when the application started up, which is correct. Now, if I open another home tab, I've got two home tabs and I can switch to it, which was another thing that wasn't actually working yesterday, but is now working because I fixed that too. And we can close tabs, and then we've got one tab left, right? So they've all got the same content underneath it, right? But there's a problem. If we click Show and Startup over here, and then switch to this one, or any of the other ones, these ones don't have the same state in them anymore. Because the state was created when the Home tab was created, and isn't updated. There's nothing that synchronizes the state, which is interesting. So, yeah. So in the reactive frameworks, the way it works is you would create a Boolean and you would wrap it in some kind of dynamic thing, and those frameworks would then work out who needed that thing because of the subscriptions on that dynamic thing due to the calls of get on that dynamic thing normally. And then they would call the code or views or update the views that used those dynamic things, and they would force a re-render on them. And then each of those re-renders would then cause the view to call get on that dynamic thing to get the updated value out of it. And they would all just magically work like that. But there's no form of that kind of synchronization within ICE, which is interesting to note. You have to do it yourself. Now, in our case, currently, we don't ever want more than one home tab, and we haven't currently got any rules to prevent that. But one of the goals for the application was to be able to have multiple tabs showing the same document, but say looking at different parts of it. And maintaining changes from one document into the other one if you switch between them. Right. So there's no easy way of doing that by the looks of it. So we have to do that ourselves. Quite what you do, I've got no idea at this point. No idea. But it's an issue that we need to delve into at some point. So let's go back to the close all. So if I press close all, it does actually close everything. Right. It does actually close everything. Additionally, down the bottom here, you can see that I added 3 home tabs, and then I press close door, and then I got these messages here. And if I open a tab and close the tab, I get the same kind of message down here. I wanted to achieve that, but there was a lot of discussion about how that should be achieved yesterday. So the way it currently works, which I still don't know whether is right or wrong, and there's probably some more Discord chat that I need to read on this, which I might read a little bit later off stream and dive into some other things today. I'm not sure exactly yet what we're going to do next, but I'm just going over what we've got so far. So the way that it works is the close all button now sends a toolbar message as opposed to a message, because application message. But this toolbar message is an application specific message. And all the toolbar buttons are going to send toolbar messages, right? And you have this mapping thing where you map toolbar messages into application messages, and then you've got a message on your application which wraps the actual toolbar message, and it's called a toolbar message with a toolbar message. Yeah, it's a lot of message wrapping. Right. So fine. So it creates a toolbar message called close all tabs. Right. And the process was that you get a message, you send a message rather, and then you do something with the message, and then after you've done something with the message, you respond with an action or a task or something like this, and some people call them events, and in ICE, there's no real sort of like defined return value for code that you call. I mean, they could return tasks, or they could return something. But there's these tasks anyway. We'll go into the tasks a bit later. I don't fully understand the tasks in ICE yet. Anyway, so they return actions. So the idea is that if you've got an application message called application toolbar message, which contains a toolbar message, then you can ask the toolbar to update itself. I don't know, maybe the toolbar needs to know what the last button was or something like that. Who knows? The toolbar has got an update method on it. The toolbar is basically a struct with no state inside it, and just an update method currently. And this basically does just some type conversion essentially at the moment. It says if you've got a toolbar message that's close all tabs, then the action is close all tabs. And this seems a bit pointless to me, but you know, I guess if it needed to do something else in the future, then maybe it'd be useful. Yeah, okay, but on the bright side, it does prevent the application's messages from being polluted with lots of different types of messages for lots of different reasons, which I suppose is a good thing. So going back to the toolbar, so it then returns a toolbar action called close all tabs, and then the application obviously needs to do that somehow. So the way it currently does it, it goes, if you've got a toolbar message, then call the update method. That returns the action. Then if the action is close all tabs, then it goes self tabs close all. Close all gives you a list of the tab keys that were closed. And then for each one of those tab keys, it calls self on closed tab, which is the same thing that happens when a tab action, tab closed with a key, is called. It calls on tab closed. And this on tab closed method is the thing that prints tab closed key. Right? Yay. That's how that works. Now, close all on the tabs implementation, which is in the library, works by getting the keys from the slot map, collecting them, taking the selected tab, clearing the list of tabs in the slot map, and then returning the list of keys that it just cleared. That's how it works. Now, I was originally thinking that this should generate the same kind of message that you get when the tab closed button is pressed. But it turns out that that is not the way you do things. You don't actually have any way to emit events unless you are a widget. And even if you were a widget, the application code doesn't have a reference to the widget, so it can't tell the widget to generate events. So generating events programmatically seems to be a no-no. This is how I understand the conversation from the Discord channel yesterday. It seems to be a no-no. Similarly, people say the only code that should call this method should be iced itself. That led to lots of confusion between these update methods, like on tabs, for instance, this tabs update. Now, this tabs isn't a widget, it's just something else that needs to update itself that we're delegating to. Now, we could inline all of that code inside here, which would then not break the rule of that no one else is allowed to call this update method. So to me, and to one of the other users in the Discord channel, it seems absolutely fine to call this, not breaking any rules. That was my takeaway on that. So, that's what we currently have. Now, this morning, I woke up, went to the Discord server, which I'm quite happy was quite active yesterday, and I noted in my little happy thoughts. Come on. Yeah, I don't know why this ends up in light mode or dark mode sometimes. It's weird. Let me press this dark mode here and then press exit. Yeah, I don't know why sometimes it ends up in light mode and sometimes it's in dark mode. I haven't found out how to control that yet. Anyway, my happy thoughts was that it was a friendly and helpful and active community. But there seems to be a little confusion as to why I want to separate all these things. And it's mostly for reusability and testability and separating concerns. So now if I want to test anything to do with the toolbar, then I can go into the toolbar and write tests for it. And if I want to write anything for the home tab, I can go into the home tab and write tests for that without depending on any other code in the project. Yeah, I wonder why that does do that. Yeah. Let me just press this for a moment. Why does it sometimes come out in light mode? See, it's in light mode still. Anyway, we'll ignore that. I'll try and work that out later. Yeah, I'm using Excalidraw, and there's a plugin for Logset which allows you to edit it and create them in line. You can go /draw, and then you can create a new one, and away you go. Huh, that's interesting. Why is this one different to this one? That's weird. What's the difference? Hold on, what happened here then? Oh dear. Oh, I've done it differently somehow. I don't know how I've done it differently, and I don't know why this is in dark mode and the other one's in light mode. Bit strange. Okay, we're just going to delete that and try that again. Draw, create new drawing. Oh, it does it a different way, look. There's two ways of doing it somehow. I didn't know this. Okay, fine. Moving on. Maybe there's two plugins. Maybe I've already got one installed. I don't know. All right, anyway, so let's go back to what happened in the Discord channel yesterday. So, two things happened. A message was created and a gist was created. Here's an updated gist, and this was the message. So we've not had the chance to grok this yet, but let's see if we can unpick some of this. So he says, this is the Thorn guy in the Discord server. He says he made a mistake by wrapping actions in actions in actions, which is this wrapping. So let's have a look at that first in his gist. So we've got an app, fine. It's got an update method, fine. It's got a view, right? And where's the home tab? So the home tab says someone else is basically having the same go at creating the tab system. They've not done all the documents and all this kind of stuff that we're going to get into in this, but it's nice that someone else is having a go at the same problem. It also validates the fact that it's not an unreasonable problem to solve. If someone else thinks they could have a go at it, if they thought, no, that's unreasonable, they wouldn't even start trying it, right? So that's nice. Right. So we've got a home tab. and it updates its state. But does it ever? Where does it create an action? It doesn't create an action, so I'm not sure about this wrapping actions in actions in actions thing. Let's see if we can search this for action. No. Okay, that's odd then. He says he's updated his tab bar, but I'm not too fussed about the tab bar, to be honest, because anybody can create a tab bar. That's not the important point. It's how the messages, to me, that's not the important point. The important point is how the messages are sent between all the different parts of it, rather than the detail of the actual tab bar implementation. But let's have a look at the close all, because that's how this all came about. Let's see how the close all button works. So so the toolbar has a button which says close all tabs. So let's see how that is handled. So we've got an app. Hi, the letter M. How's it going? We're just unpicking or having a look through one of the gists that was created. I'll paste a link to the message. So Thorn in the Discord server created this gist. I'll paste the gist link as well in the chat. There we go, so you can have a look at it too. So we're just trying to unpick what's different between what was created prior to me asking about how you're supposed to do close all. So the app has an update method which handles close all here, and it just calls self tabs close all, which is sort of what I was doing yesterday, which is fine. And then it just calls close all. So how does closed all work inside the tab bar implementation, or inside the tabs? Yeah, it just does what it needs to do, clears the history, clears the insert order, and tries to close everything in the tabs. But what's this map all about here? Oh, I see. This just gets the key and puts the key in. Well, it might be the tab. Vector of type T. So that's the type T. So you basically get the tabs themselves back and the keys are thrown away. Fine. So, and there's no actions, there's none of this going on. Let's look at all the method signatures in this gist for the update methods and see if any of them return anything. So the main app one returns a task message. The home tab doesn't return anything. The new tab doesn't return anything. Okay, so right, all of these have been moved out of a tabs thing and put into the main application, which I don't like, but he mentioned that in his comment. For simplicity, the rewrite uses app as the root of the tabbing, so you probably want to factor that out. So there's no tabs update method basically anymore. So all the tab specific stuff aren't handled by an update method. They all just call methods on tabs themselves. I'm failing to see sort of any main differences on this. Let me just go back to the original gist. So this is the gist from before now. So we had this action. So I'm just sort of looking at this action. I mean, is there anything wrong with this action? I don't really see what was wrong with creating actions. Because one of the users was saying there's a difference between close tab, for instance, and tab closed, right? One is an instructions to say do something, like the button itself, close tab, right? And then some stuff should happen, as in the tab should be closed. And when the tab is closed, you can say it did happen, so after the fact. Before the fact, an instruction, and then if there's anything to do after that. But this action, I don't know. The naming of like message and action and event and all this is a bit funky to me. Like, there's lots of different types of message. It's not a very good name, in my opinion. I wish this was called, like, event. Yeah. So previously it just returned an action, right? But there's no handling in this new gist of this anymore. Let me try and grok this. I made a mistake by wrapping actions in actions in actions, leaky layers. Pushing refs down the call stack is the preferred way for lower layers to mutate or access global state. See the extra parameter to home tab update and home tab view. Okay, let's have a look at that. Home tab update. Yeah, right. So this solution fixes the problem that I mentioned earlier, in that there wasn't any shared state. Right. So yes. So I have a bit of a problem with this. Like, long-term problem. When your application grows, and I've mentioned this in a previous live stream, what happens is you start out with let's see if I can draw this. Yeah, okay. Wait, hold on. Oh, that's interesting that it does that. Okay, fine. What happens is you start out, well, should I do it in this or should I do it in a text editor? I'll try and do it in this. What's in my head now? When you start out with an app, you have this small little config, right? And it's only got one or two things in it. Let's say, I don't know, startup config. And then we'll say that this is the config. Let's do a box here inside this. Might be a bit better. Startup config. Right? And then you have a bit of an application which needs to look at just this little bit of the config. Right? And then later what happens is you add another one of these things. If we, let's turn the grid mode. Yeah. Later what happens is that you add, I don't know, let's say, let's go toolbar config, right? And then what happens? Let's write. No, come on. There we go. Startup code. And let's say toolbar code, right? And this uses this bit. Right? Simple. And then we have another bit of config, and let's say, I don't know, let's go with tabs config. I mean, how do you want your tabs to look, right? Should they be at the top? Should they be at the bottom? You know, that kind of thing. And then we have another bit of code which uses it. Tabs code. Which uses this. Right? So what eventually happens is that you get many different things inside this config. And it grows out of all proportion. And yeah. And it ends up looking crazy. And you've got lots of bits of code which all need to use this config. All need to use their own bits of config, right? But when you do this, there's something that's not clear from this that happens. Is that this startup code doesn't actually have a dependency on the startup config. It doesn't just have dependency on the startup config. It actually has a compile time dependency on the entire config. Which means that all of these things have a compile time dependency on each other. Which is bad. Because if you change one bit of config, you have to recompile all of these things. And all the parts of your application have a dependency on this config thing. So there's basically everything is coupled, and it's really bad. And config is just one of these sort of like things that just ties an entire application together. It's a nightmare. Yeah. So what you need to do is try and reduce this as much as possible. So instead of passing, as we saw here, a reference to the entire config to the Home tab. The Home tab doesn't actually care about all of the other bits of config, right? It really just cares about its own. Oh wait. Yeah, it really only cares about its own little bit of config. So it's very important to wrap those bits of config and only pass through the bits that you need. But this might be a problem in Rust because all of those parts live in a struct, and then you're going to get what? Partial moves and partial borrows and all this kind of thing from this. So, yeah. What you really need is a config system that doesn't bundle everything together in this giant config struct. That's what you really need. Yeah. So anyway, enough about config. That actually seems to work quite well, that does. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, right. Huh. Okay, fine. How do you? Can you resize this bit? I'm just trying to experiment with this thing. Can you resize? No. But you can scroll up and down and move around. Yeah, that's quite interesting. That is. This plugin. It's quite nice. Okay. Very good. So yeah, we want to avoid passing the config structure through. That's basically the long give and take of it. Let's see how this update method gets called. So it passes a mutable reference to self.config. Right. This is interesting. There's a save config method, but it's not called from. Where's it called from? How does the config get saved? Let's have a look and see what he did. Quit. Let's have a look at this. Oh, that's why there was a subscription there. Yes, I really do appreciate you creating this gist for me, Thorn. It's very interesting. I'm learning stuff. Yeah, okay. So a subscription is created which generates messages when window events occur. And when does this get called? Is this magic? Oh, I see. So when you create an application, you say that there's a subscription, so eventually it does stuff and calls a subscription method, which then returns a subscription of type message. Fine, so I suppose you can listen to other things with it and generate other messages. Okay. 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 Alright, so we're looking for the update method. That's it. Happens there. Fine, that seems alright. Let's have a look at the other method that he says to look at. Home tab.view. And I suppose it's just passing the config through again, right? a mutable reference and a non-mutable reference. Yeah, sort of what I expected. So okay, so this is the preferred way of doing things. Fine. Because that's what we haven't done in our application is exactly this. So let's go back to the one that I'm creating, and we'll see if we can follow this same pattern. So apparently you don't need actions. Let's do the view thing first. So I'm trying to remember where it was. What calls this view? Okay, let's look at this. So this is the view on the main application. Yeah, you see, if you try and make this reusable, you're going to run into problems. Yeah. So because this is done in the app, okay, this is interesting. This is interesting. Now, let's look at this for a second. In our app, we've got this reusable tabs thing, which has got a tab trait, which has got a view method on it. And all the view messages for all of the tabs need to have the same view, they need to implement the same trait. Because when we encapsulate all the tabs things together, we need to call the view method on the tabs, which then needs to call the view method on a particular type of tab with it. So this is essentially where we'd have this config thing. But the problem is, as I just mentioned a minute ago, each view, you know, the home tab or whatever, is going to need its own bit of config and not the entire config, right? So the signature for the view method on the home tab would be different from the document tab, for instance. So the document tab view method would take document config, and the home tab would take home config, for instance, or startup config. But we can't do that because these are in a trait. So there is no way that we can pass, currently as it is, pass a mutable reference to a part of the config like this. So how do we do this delegation? I mean, should we do it? This is an example of how we do it, but should we really do it? Should we actually do it? I'm thinking that one of the ways that we could do it would be to pass a closure to it. Because then the method signatures of all the tabs would be the same still. But what would the closure do? Let's think about this. So we've got our view method for the application, and in Thorne's example, it's manipulating or calling methods on the view from the main Okay, let's look at this. So this is how we render our tabs. We call view on it. This is interesting, because previously the example was to have a tab bar manage its own content area. But now the content area is not managed by that. Well, I guess I mean, if these are wrapped outside of this, then how would you do it? You know, What could we do? What could we do? What could we do? How could we pass? We need to get a bit of a config to the view. Let's just add a closure here. And let's say this closure gets the type of tab that's the current tab. Let's say active tab, and then the closure is going to give us what? Tab kind. I suppose it has to. And then what can we usefully do here? I guess we can match on active tab. Oh, I guess, and then if it's some tab kind home tab with a home tab in it. I'm kind of writing the code as I'm thinking I might want to do something with it, and then we'll try and make it work and see if it actually makes any sense. So if you've got a home tab, then you can do something with the home tab. What could you do? honestly, I don't think there's anything particular that you might need to do here. I mean, I could do something like set config or something like this. But I just don't think you need to do this. I don't know. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. We could do that, but I don't think we need to. Let's try doing it a different way. So instead of this new method maintaining its own Boolean state inside here, let's do this a different way. Let's have an arc to startup config. Okay, let's not do that. I don't want to go down the whole path of creating structures inside, nested structures inside the config in this example yet. But let's just do this. Let's see if it works. And there, my home tab has now got a dependency on the entire config, which in this example is probably okay. And let's just call this config. It's not that arc, is it? It's that arc. And let's make this take this instead. And we're going to do this. And then we're going to go self.config show home on startup. And then here, if we get an update, we can update ourselves, self.config.show home on startup. And let's just hit compile and see what happens. I think we need to find the code that calls new. So now instead of just passing that, which isn't a dynamic thing, we'll just pass a reference to the config instead. And because it's an arc, we can clone the arc. We're not cloning the config, we're just cloning the arc. Right. So how do we mutate the config? I can get a reference to it. I can get an owned one, but yeah. It's not implemented for standard sync arc config. Is it this? Is that what we're supposed to be doing? I forget. Can we get a mutable reference to the config? Can you do this? I don't even remember. Yeah, it doesn't really really help. You just get the same problem. Because we've got this, we need to do something with the arc to get a mutable thing from it, but there's nothing here that I can call that gives me a mutable reference to a config. Is there an as mut that magically works? Apparently not. So yeah. Do we have to have a mutex in order to be able to change the things in it? So it says shared references disallow mutation by default. An arc is no exception. You cannot generally obtain an arc to something inside an arc. Yeah, if you need to mutate through an arc, use mutex. Exactly. This is what I thought. So do we need this? And then we just expect it to magically work. We have to do this. Oh. Yeah, so I suppose we could do that. Let's just try this. I mean, none of the other code will be running on the config at the same time, so it might work. Right, and then we just do this everywhere. And we're just putting these in so that we can see the types that we get back. We've got an arc, lock result, mutex guard. And then here we need to go, well, self.config.clone. This is going to be right, but we need to fix this to be a mutex. I don't know whether this is really the right way to do it, but it allows me to keep my traits intact. So we just fix all these types to start with, and then create a mutex around the config. And we just do lock unwrap everywhere, right? And then we got to save. Well, this is different. What's the best way of doing this? Do we have to do, because we've got a mutex guard here now. So I suppose that might work. Let's see what happens if we try and create 2 home tabs now. Right, and I'm changing it on one of them, and then I go to the other one, and now it's set. And if I'm on another other one, and then untick it, it's now unticked on all the other ones. So we have the shared state now, you know. And there shouldn't be any code which needs to lock mutex that runs at the same time as any of the other code, because it's all running on the same thread, right? So the mutex is always going to be available to be unlocked. I think. I don't know. I don't know whether we like that or not. Let's say well, what are we doing here? What do we do? Yeah, use mutex to share well of the home tab. So allow use mutex around the config to allow multiple instances of the home tab to use the same config state. So that changes in one home tab are reflected in another home tab. Yeah, okay. So we don't need to pass. So I'm just looking at going back to this gist that we were looking at. We don't need to pass any arguments down to the view methods of each individual editor tab. And when they're in a trait, you can't anyway because they've all got the same method signature. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. I mean, pushing refs down the call stack is the preferred way for lower layers to mutate access global state. Why is it the preferred way? I mean, what's wrong with doing what I just did? Sure, you add mutexes to it, but you know you've now got a testable, reusable component still. Yeah, passing all the things you need to render a view as arguments down to the view, I'm not sure whether that's necessarily a good idea. I mean, imagine if your view is a complicated view, such as a document view, for instance. Do I really want to be passing all of those things from, I don't know, is there much global state that we need to pass? I'm not sure about it. I don't really know. I guess we'll find out a little bit more about this when we try and add the document tab. Let's see if there's anything else that might be useful out of this. If that's not viable for some reason, well, because I'm using a trait, so then bubble actions without nesting. Bubble actions without nesting. Without nesting. But you can't bubble actions without nesting. Because when you've got a trait, the traits need to return a particular type of action, and they shouldn't know about all the other actions that can possibly be created. Otherwise, how would it be reusable? You don't fully understand that statement. I don't fully understand how to bubble actions without nesting. Yeah. Not sure how I could achieve bubbling actions without nesting in this. Because we've got a home tab. It's a shame Thorn's not around at the moment to join the stream, really. That might be useful, but never mind. So the update method returns a particular type of action. Which is handled by this update method. And this needs to return something which is applicable to all of the different tabs, and therefore it has to wrap it, because I can't return a home tab action here, because if I did, then when I come to add the document tab actions, I can't, I'd have to bundle them all together, and then it would couple the home tab and the document tabs together, so I can't do that. So I don't know how you're supposed to bubble things without wrapping them. I'll ask about that in the Discord channel a bit later. Okay, let's just move on to the next thing and see what falls out in the wash. Let's try adding the document tab. Right. But first, we'll start with the config. What we're going to do is add recent documents or something. And we're going to make this work. Something like that. Now, I already made something like this work in another example. So let's find that other example and borrow the same bit of code. What was the last one we did? Cushy, I think, was the other one. This window. This one. We called it, you know, we can rename this if we wanted to. We could call it that, path buff. And we're just going to borrow this same stuff here. Yeah. And we're doing implementing default just so that we can go, oops, just so that we can set the show on startup to true by default. Right. So we've got that, and there's nothing else in here that's changed. And then in our main Cushy app, we had a bit of code that went for each blah blah blah, then open a document tab. So we'll start with that for now, because I don't want to get into the buttons for new and open because new requires a form and I don't want to do a form yet, and open requires a file selector and I don't want to deal with file selectors yet either. So if I just have a list of documents, I can just manually type them in to the config, restart the application, and then it'll have it call the load method on a document, which will create a tab and all this kind of stuff, I suppose. Right. So what was this called? It's called Open Document Paths. We never used it in this one. I think we had another one. It wasn't the Flurm. Was it Visio that we did it in? Maybe it was the Visio example. I don't even remember. So many examples. Yeah, no. Don't think it was that. Oh, it was MakePad. This window. Okay, let's look at this one. Config. Open document paths. This is the one. Here we go. And this is used by the app. Here it is. We did this. Let's just keep that there so we can refer to it. So, in our main app, when we start up, we go, if show home on startup is done, then do this. Let's break this out into let config equals config.lock.unwrap, perhaps. Because we're going to need the same mutex guard in order to do the next thing. I don't know whether we're going to get the mutable borrows thing, so let's just go let documents to open is config dot and then it was called open document paths, and we'll just clone the entire vector of paths, which is fine. And then we'll go for document path in documents to open. And then we do something. I guess we go UI.open document. Right, in the same way that we've got add home. But let's pass it the document path. And then implement this. Right. And my IDE keeps adding import blocks everywhere. So let's put it in an appropriate place here, perhaps. Yeah, so I suppose we follow the same pattern as this, right? I don't know. Document tab. And we go new and we pass it the path, which is currently called P0. Okay. So, and then we're going to need to do the same kind of thing here where we add it to the list of tabs, right? So we get a key back when we call self-tabs.push. And we're going to do a tab kind document, and we're going to give it a document tab, I suppose. Seems reasonable. So let's add this. Well, no. What do we do first? We've got a home mod like this, right? So let's create document. Yeah. I don't really want to call it document. Let's look at the home one and see what's in it for now. This is specifically a home tab. So let's rename this module to home tab. And it's hopefully will become a little bit clearer why I'm doing this in a bit. Oh, right. So there's more references to it. Yes. No. 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 And then go. So we're going to call it document tab. Because a document tab is going to have a document. And I want a module for document. And I want a module for the tab. So we're going to create that. And we've got 1,000 files called mod, which is brilliant. And then inside our home tab, we had a structure. And we're going to borrow the same kind of thing here, except that I don't care about any config. And we're just going to, I'm just copying and pasting for the naming consistency. So we've got that. And then we've also got a new method on it, which we apparently need to call. But let's go back to the main bit of code first. So now we can import this, which tells us we need a new method, which takes a path. Right. And eventually we're going to need to do something with this. And now that we've got a... Well, we don't yet. Hold on. Now that we've got a method that returns a document tab, with nothing in it at the moment, we've got a document tab. So now we can add a tab kind that takes one of these. Like so. Right? And I suppose that we're going to need some of these messages in a bit, but yeah, right. So where do we get to now? So app tabs needs to handle the other enum variants now. And do all the mapping and all this kind of stuff. So let's just add all these. So a home tab message was a thing that looked like this, and action was a thing that looked like that. So let's borrow those. And we've got home tab, and then we've got stuff underneath it. And then we've got an impul. Okay, so it goes here. And we've got no messages yet. And we've got no actions yet. We just need these things, which we can now import. Right, which means we can now do the same thing here for the document tab. And this is a bit boilerplatey, but we don't really care. And to be honest, this stuff could probably be solved with a macro. And this is going to be interesting. And it's interesting because it says the match expression does not cover all possible cases, because it is possible to have a tuple which has a home tab kind and a tab kind message with a document tab message, but this would never exist. So we need to go unreachable instead to keep the match happy. Right, now we've got view and update not implemented. So I think what we need to do is do the same thing we did for the home tab, which was implement tab for home tab. Impl tab for document tab. And the type of tab that it was the create tabs tab. Yeah, fine. Which apparently needs all this. And the messages that it creates are document tab messages. The actions that it creates are document tab actions. And then we need a label. And let's just go self.path.toString. Right, and let's store the path inside the document. Why not? What happens? Oh, do we need to do... Do I need... What does this give you? No, I don't really want that. I thought there was a... Yeah, I think you have to do that on these. These are a bit weird. Right. This is not a home tab action. This is going to be a document tab action. No, that's why that's wrong. And then what? Oh, we need to handle the different types of messages here. Okay, fine. And we're just going to print it out for now. We've got nothing that sends any actions currently. So sure. This needs to take a mutable self. And it might compile. Okay. So if we run it and then close the app and then look at the config, we should see some stuff in it. But no. It fails because it's a missing field. This is because you need to have a default in the Serde derive thing. It needs to have Serde default on the config. Thus, so that this gets initialized with an empty vector if it doesn't exist in the config that we load. Because it doesn't currently have it, but when it saves it in a minute, it will have it. Right. So now if we look at our config, we've got the open document paths. Great. Which means that we can create an assets directory which can have a couple of text files in it. Which have some content. An example text file. Another example text file, right? So we can probably specify the path to that as being something like assets text file one.txt. We're not trying to open this file yet. The path might yet be wrong. But what should happen is that we get a tab that has got this in the title. And if that works, then, you know, that's a start. Except it doesn't work. It crashed. Oh, it's because we haven't implemented Vue yet. Oh, duh. Duh, of course. Yeah, we haven't done this yet, have we? I don't know. What do you do? I haven't got anything to render here yet, so I need an iced widget that just takes up some space. I don't know. Is it I don't know. Where were the widgets in here again? Where are the widgets in iced? Where are they defined? Is it here? No. There's core source, layout, mouse, button, render overlay, renderer. Where are all the widgets? Oh, they're in the widget directory, are they? Okay, fine. Fine. So it's not a container because I don't have anything to contain. Space, I think it is. It's this one, isn't it? Empty space. So we're just going to return a space. How do we do this again? I don't even remember how we do anything with views in ICE at the moment. That was a few days ago now, and I've forgotten it all. Oh, I pressed Alt Tab. I didn't mean to press Alt Tab. No. Where do we go? Space. Wait. And then do we call, then do we have a width and a height? I've seen this fill thing before, right? Length fill. Is it that? And then do we just go .into on the end of this? Maybe. I suppose we just do that for now to implement all these. Now what happens? Look, we've got a document tab with a space in it. The The status bar area, we've still got rendering issues with this status bar area, but I don't really care about that just yet. Fine. So, add documents. Document tab's great. Sure, it all seems fine. Now what? What do we do next? Right. So a document tab needs access to a document. Right. Now, who should load documents? Where should documents be stored? Who owns the documents? Etc. 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 So, the app needs to own the documents. Right. So here's our app. Right. And it's got these things in it. And what it needs is documents, which is going to be a slot map of document. So we need document or documents? Document. Document. Let's create a module for documents, and let's go obstruct document. We're going to have some fun in a minute. Is it really a document? Okay. It's not really a document. Now, why is it not a document is what you're thinking. What's wrong with this? Well, the requirement says that you can have two types of document. You can have either an image document or you can have a text document. So really, this needs to be document kind. Which is going to be an enum. Right. So you can have a text document which has a text document. You see where we're going with this now, right? So therefore we need a text document mod. And we're just going to deal with this one to start with. Right. So, now back in here, we've got our document kind. Right. But in order to store documents in a slot map, we really need a document key. And therefore, in our document mod, much like the way that we created a key for using in slot maps for the tabs, we're going to do the same thing but for documents. Great. And we'll update the pointless comment that gets required unless you do it. So, let's try and compile this. Can we just go default? I think we can. Okay. So we've got our place to store the documents. Great. Now, yeah, we're going to get all kinds of problems coming up. Okay, so when our app starts up, it goes, where is it? It goes open document. So this open document thing probably needs to create the document kind instance depending on the path that's entered. Now we have a bunch of code which already does this, which is totes fine, and we're going to borrow that. And we've got this. In our MakerPad example, and we're just going to lift this code. I don't remember exactly where it was. We're going to try and find it. The open document tab, right. So we've basically got a bit of code which looks at the file extension of the path that's passed in, creates a document arc of a document kind, creates a key when it adds it to the list of documents, and then it does some other stuff with it that we're not really interested in. But we'll borrow this bit up to here, because this is the useful bit. Let's just do all that. We've got text document, we've got image document. So let's add the image document as well. Let's just move these up. And then we need to add an image document, I suppose, which is just an empty structure at the moment. Fine. Then we go back to this. Yes, so we need this one. Right. And these documents are containing arcs, and probably need to do that. Let me look at the MakePad example again. Right, and each of these documents need their own, they need a path argument. Oops, they need a new method which takes a path. So let's see if we can borrow those from this. Okay, so yeah, we're going to need this as well. So I'm just going to borrow all this because we've already done it. So, oops, Alt Tab, there we go. Paste this in, right. Right, and we need the same for the image document. And this is the bit of state that we wanted. not going to add the coordinate in just yet. I'm not quite ready for that. Does. So we can call the new methods on those things. So let's go back to this bit. So that should be happy now. But the type of the thing inside this enum needs to be an arc. One of these maybe. And it might even need to be a mutex at some point. We haven't decided. It might be that the document itself has stuff inside it that allows you to lock it and then update it. I don't know yet. But we'll do this for now. We'll see what falls out in the wash. And the document is put inside an arc as well. Everybody's got references to everything. Great. Yeah. So this document perhaps needs to be an arc of a document kind in order to fix that. I forget what the keyword short for back is. It's this. There we go. So now we've got a document key. Right. Now, this document key can be used by the document implementation tab to access its document. What did we do in the MakePad example for that? Let's have a look. I'm wary of copying too much that we might not need. Yeah. Yeah. Works a bit differently in this. We might not need this arc. We might not need one of these arcs. Yeah, okay. So instead of giving the document tab a path, do we give it an arc to a document? I think we do. Let's do that. Let's transition that. Or yeah, okay, let's do that. Let's do that. We don't currently need this key at the moment, so I'm just going to leave that like that. Right, so we've got a document, which is an arc to a document kind, right? Let's call it document kind here, actually, just so that it's not document. Right, so we can create a document tab with a document arc, but we broke our label implementation because it doesn't have path anymore. So let's go if it's a no, document, we can go document.path. Hold on. We've got this. We've got that. Yeah. Document path and then equal to stir. I mean, basically do the same thing as it did before. Unwrap. Let's just return a reference to this. Is path private? Yep. Well, let's just make this public for now. It's fine. And we can do the same thing for image document. Fine. So we've unbroken our label thing. But we can't move document kind out itself, so we'll use a reference to it. Can we do go ref here like this? Yeah, I think we can. I think. Because you don't need to create a reference there. Or maybe not. Let me just do it this way. Oh, I see. Why don't we get this? Self document kind is arc document kind. I thought you could. Am I supposed to be doing this? Yes. And then should this now then be the ref thing here? Yes, that's what we're supposed to be doing. Let's clear up some warnings. Don't care about that one yet. We don't care about that yet. Fine. So let's run it and see what happens. See if it opens files. Right. So we've got it failed. Probably because the file's not found. Yes, the file's not found. So where we've got our config, we probably need to put a different path in here, which is going to be probably examples tabbed document UI, like this. Okay, we've got a document tab still, right? So we've got a text file. Let's, just for fun, add the image one as well. This one, assets, base, image file one, yes please. And this is just a green little tick thing. And the name of the file is this. Don't select everything. There we go. Right. Let's run it now and see what happens. We should get a bunch of tabs. Let's just ignore the fact that the tabs look like a word beginning with S. But the point is, we've got different types of tab instance now. Because we must have, right? Because I suppose we could just add a little bit of logging to it now. Println logging. I'm going to use println logging now. I'm not going to go the whole tracing route right now. It's easy enough to change over. But I don't want to have to deal with learning how to do logging in ICE right now. I can do that off stream, perhaps. Trying to find my tab document UI code. Here it is. I'm just going to rename these mods to just text and image because the document suffix is unnecessary because it's already in a document module. Right. So in the image one, I suppose we can go println creating image document and put the path there. Doesn't implement display. Oh, let's just call debug on it then. And then we'll do the same thing for this one. And we're just going to run it and just make sure it prints out 3 lines, right? It does indeed create the right types of documents. This is good. Great. Let's do a commit at this point. What do we do here? Yeah. So I suppose the main thing that we did was add documents. And the app owns the documents. Now it's important that the app owns the documents instead of the tab owning the document. Because if you want 2 tabs that can look at the same document or to know what documents you've got open and a whole bunch of other things that you might need to do with all the documents at the same time, you don't have to ask each individual tab to ask them for their document first. And you can also share a document between 2 tabs. You can have 2 tabs which look at the same document. This is very useful in productivity apps where you right click on a tab and you go open a new window and it shows you the same document in a new window and changes made in one are reflected in the other. So add documents. I guess that's the main thing that we did really, isn't it? Yeah. What next? Let's try displaying the document. Why not? So the text document has actually loaded up some config. So we've got a document tab. All right, and currently the document tab is just creating a space, but that's no good. It needs to delegate to the particular type of document to ask it to create a view. So how should we do that? We've got a document kind, right? So here, I suppose we can go match self.document kind. Oh, we have to do this. Right. And if it's a text document, we can do one thing. And if it's an image document, we can do another thing. And probably what we should do is delegate this to the document itself, perhaps. So let's try that. Let's go text document.view and image document.view. And let's, for the fun of it, call, well, I don't know, hold on. Let's do this, because I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen now. Because we've got this document tab message. I can see where this is going. You can see it, can't you, as well? Right. Okay. So a text document view is going to return text document messages, and an image document view is going to return image document messages. But this is supposed to be returning document tab messages, and therefore we need to do some mapping. But let's create these methods and set the signatures on those first. Import on a text document? Why? How? No. Document text. Pub on view. I suppose it takes a self, and it's going to return an element of some lifetime with a text document message, I suppose. Of which there are no messages currently. Sure, something like that. And here we're going to do this. What are we going to do? Let's actually put the element that we want. Let's go, what is it, text, new. With what? Self.content. What is this text thing? Is this? Oh no, I don't. That's the wrong thing. It's not from Paint. What is it? Do we just run a method called text? Was it that one? I think it might be. And then you get text. And text wants something that returns into fragment. And then what? Can we pass it a reference to that? Yeah, we'll change this into an editable thing at some point, but let's just display it to start with. Right. And now I guess we need the same thing on the image document. And here we're just going to use a space for now, because I don't know how to display images yet. I don't want to know just yet. Image document message. Import some things and create the enum. Okay, right. So that fixes that. There's some complaining going on here. Match arms have different things. So I guess probably here we need to map these. And then we're going to go document tab message text document message. I suppose. And this is going to take a what? A text document message, which apparently is still private. And it needs to derive clone, which is fine. Okay, right, and then we do the same thing for this one. I suppose. That one, which also needs clone on it. And does that shut this thing up? Can't move, so perhaps we do that. Yeah. And I think this just needs to be an underscore here, not static. Yeah, because I don't think that was right in the trait anyway. Let's have a look at this. Oops. I don't know. I suppose at the moment they all just return no action, don't they? Because we've got nothing to do. And it's complaining about the lifetime might not live long enough. Is it wrong to have this here? Should it be elided? That's my question. Doesn't match the trait definition, that's fine. Let's get rid of this and try and elide it. Yeah, there we go. Fine. So what happens now? Does it display some text? It does. And then we've got the space. You know, so we're getting there. Everything's fine. So we added views for the text documents, and we fixed some eliding, and we've got some unused imports now, which we can clear up a little bit. The moment we want to try and change anything in this is that's going to be all manner of fun. I think we're good there. Right. How long have we been going today? 2 hours and 20 minutes. Yeah, we're making progress though. I think we are actually making some progress. It looks like toffee. Oh, what happened there? Did I delete one import too many? Apparently I did. Okay, let's run that again. Ew. Can we close them? Yes. Okay, this is good. What do we fancy doing next? That's the question. Should we have a quick stab, like a quick 10-minute stab at trying to open an image document to see what happens? Let's try that. We also need to make that list of open document tabs update itself. Let me add a to-do on that before I forget that. Where do I put the to-do for that? I suppose in the save config. Oh, we've done that. So I suppose what we need to do is update the list of open documents in the config. I don't think we can do it here though. The reason I don't think we can do it there is because that application, the tab document UI, will have been deleted at this point. It'll have been dropped. So we don't have it. So this is probably where we need to do that with subscription and then handle the window close event. And then at that point you can look at self documents and then get all the documents from it and then get all the paths from it and then update the config at that point. But we need to do it at some point. Remove one to do. Add a to-do regarding the list of open documents. Alright, so we need to do that. Let's have a quick look at loading up images. Let's look for an example. Look, there's an SVG example. Is there an image example? No. Let's look at the SVG example for inspiration. SVG handle from path. Okay. I mean, I want to be able to open SVGs. Graphics module. Image. Look, there's it. It's an image module. Let's see where this is used. In engine geometry layer and some mod files and a null and a layer. Yeah. Not really what I was expecting to find. I was expecting to hoping to find some example which uses an image. Okay, let's look for this load method, because maybe it doesn't care about the type of image and that's why it doesn't come up in the results. And there's a cache. What? Tiny skier. Really wasn't expecting that. How do we think we display images? Does the solar system load images? Look, there's PNG files there. It must do something with them. Be nice if there was just like an image example. You know, there's an SVG example, so why is there not an image example? Let's see what it does. So you've got image handles. Oh no. Okay, so you go image handle and then you do something which is not going to be this. Okay, let's see if we can do something with this. Document image. I don't know, what do we do here? Do we have an image handle? Let's go pub. No, let's not make it pub. Let's go handle image handle. Was it this? Core image. And then we've got a from path method. Good. Well, we might be all right then. Can we do this? What does from path want? Does it want a reference? Something that be converted into a path buff, but I've already got a path buff. So this will be cannot move, and if you clone it, it says value used after being moved. Oh well, I suppose we need to. Okay, let's go. Let handle equals and then this. Perhaps. Can we just give it a reference to the path? Apparently. Now how do we display the image? Right, so we've got a handle. Let's look at the solar system example again. And we've got this. And it's got a frame. Where's frame? What? We've got a frame, space cache, canvas cache. Oh, this isn't going to be fun, is it? Import message canvas program message for state. What? Oh god, this is going to be fun. I just want to display an image. It doesn't feel like I should need to do this. Is there a better example? Please tell me there's not. Oh, no. View. And then is this an optional thing? Yeah, okay. Alright, so there's an image method. Okay, right, that's sort of what I was expecting. Let's try that. So maybe you can just go image and then have a handle. Okay. So there's a helper. That one. So instead of this, we do something else. Then what? Something that goes into handle. And now I don't know about the width and the height of it and all the rest of it. But this went dot width and dot height. Let's try that. What else can we do with an image? I want to set the aspect ratio. I want to make it so that when you resize the window, it resizes the image and maintains the aspect ratio. That's what I really want. And perhaps with a minimum size and a maximum size, you know. What's this content fit thing? Contain, cover, fill. Scale down if it's too big for the space. Contain. Preserving aspect ratio. Okay. Let's try that. Content fit. Contain. We'll try that. Let's see if we can display an image. Who thinks we can display an image? Place your bets. Place your bets. I'm guessing yes, it's gonna work. I have some faith. How does it work though? So it resizes. Wow, look at this. We've got text documents and we've got images. Wow. Right. But what we've not got on these tabs is any form of state yet. And I want a little sidebar on the left as well, which gives us some details about the thing on the right. So on the text one, we want a little sidebar over here, which says the name of the file and the bit of text that you selected. But we can't select any text or anything like that yet, so probably need to turn these into editors. Yeah, do you know what I think that's going to do for now? We did manage to achieve to display an image in a reasonably short space of time, but we did have to hunt around through the weeds to try and find an example which showed us how to load images, because there was no image example. You know, I might just create an image example which says, here's how you display an image. Maybe there already is one which shows you how to create a bunch of images, load them all up and let it so that you can resize the window, and it shows you what all the different content fit modes are and all this kind of thing, right? Who knows? But I think there needs to be one. Or at least one where you've got, you know, some kind of checkbox or drop down so it allow you to choose the different time that you want. Anyway, all right. We loaded an image. Display images. All right, I think that's probably going to do it for today. Let's push the code up. Tab document example. And let me just get a link to that. This thing. I'll paste this in the chat and I'll update the video content with the path to the code. Yeah, let's see if I can do that. Yeah, I'll do that after the stream. But yeah, we made some progress today. So yeah, there's still quite a lot to do. We need to review the requirements, and see which things we are and aren't doing yet. I suppose we need to make the new and the open buttons on the toolbar work, because currently they don't. So I suppose we can have a go at doing that at some point. So we've got to make these new and open buttons work. And at some point, once we get all the functionality right, we can perhaps do some styling. I don't care about the styling right now, because there's no point trying to style it if it doesn't work. It needs to work first, and then it needs to look nice, in that order. Right, okay, so just remember, folks, it's only software. How hard can it be? We'll find out on the next one. See ya.